While you were out today grabbing a last-minute bag of frozen cranberries, Donald Trump was lashing out at the judges and prosecutors in his New York and D.C. cases, ranting about the crooked and biased prosecutors working closely with my political opponent. Trump is currently free to say whatever he wants, at least for now, about Judge Arthur Engoron and his court staff in Trump's $250 million civil fraud case. And that is happening while an appeals court decides whether to revoke Judge Engoron's gag order. But things could soon change for Donald Trump. Today, an attorney for Judge Engoron argued in support of keeping that gag order, citing the alarming increase in threats against the judge and his clerk since the gag order was temporarily lifted. Since Trump posted a picture of the judge's clerk online last month, she has received 20 to 30 calls a day on her personal cell phone and 30 to 50 daily messages on her personal email and social media accounts. In today's filing, the court attorney said the hundreds of threatening and harassing voicemail messages fills more than 275 single-spaced pages. Roughly half of those messages, the filing states, have been anti-Semitic. Meanwhile, we continue to await a ruling from the D.C. Circuit Court of Appeals, which is expected to impose a narrow gag order limiting what Trump can say before his federal election interference trial in D.C. Joining me now is Josh Gerstein, senior legal affairs reporter for Politico, and Christy Greenberg, former criminal division deputy chief for the Southern District of New York. Thank you both for being here. Christy, the evidence that the attorney for the court presented today is staggering, and there's no mistaking the catalyst for these hate-filled screeds, voicemails, messages, whatever. It is when Donald Trump posts pictures and posts messages about this judge and his clerk. How does the appeals sort of process balance, yes, Trump's First Amendment rights, but quite obviously the security concerns that are on the table here?
Well, the judge has to. The judge has to look at this in balance. You don't have, particularly as a defendant, either in a civil case, as it is in New York, or in a criminal case, as he has in D.C. and in Florida, you don't have an unfettered right to say whatever you want to say. You are in a court proceeding, and there are countervailing interests here, in particular the safety of the people that are involved. And when you look at some of these messages, just looking at the sampling that were in there, they are vile. The messages against the clerk were wishing her death and demise. I mean, they are sickening. And the worst part about it is in the affidavit that was put in, the Department of Public Safety, so these are the police that are helping the court administrators, said they found these were credible violent threats. Right. They researched, they looked into this, and they substantiated them. They found that they were credible. And so they got the FBI involved and Homeland Security involved to make sure there are security measures in place to protect them. But every time they found, when Donald Trump opened his mouth and threatened and attacked these people, the threats went up. And so it just, enough is enough already. Like, there just has to be a gag order that has teeth, that will be enforced, that's going to shut him up and stop it. Like, this is completely unacceptable.
I would also just say, it's Donald Trump himself could stop doing it, too. There are not a lot of former presidents in this club of people who willingly put out messages that foment violence against innocent civilians. I digress. Josh, we are waiting for the D.C. Circuit Court of Appeals to decide whether to revoke Judge Chutkan's gag order down in D.C. And you wrote earlier this week, this panel is likely not the final word. The losing side may appeal the panel's decision to the full bench of appeals or the Supreme Court. Now, Judge Chutkan has been adamant about keeping this trial on track. And yet, how optimistic are you that she will be able to, given the fact that this could be an opportunity for further delays?
Well, I think the gag order is just a small part of the maneuverings that could happen in advance of this March 4th trial date. It may end up at the Supreme Court. I think, though, Alex, if there's a snag that starts to delay the trial, it's more likely to be around some of the very broad claims, in fact, the claims of absolute immunity that former President Trump has put forward in the case, basically saying that he cannot be prosecuted for these events because they involve things that took place while he was president. We expect Judge Chutkan to deny the motions he's already brought on those grounds. And those I could see definitely going to the D.C. Circuit or the Supreme Court. And those are the ones that I think if we derail the trial date, it'll be coming from that particular direction.
Yeah, I mean, Christy, we know that Trump has filed a reply in support of his, this is as I was walking to set, in support of his motion to dismiss the case for selective and vindictive prosecution tonight. I mean, am I wrong when I say believe that this is the sort of throw everything at the wall and see what sticks, like, delay strategy?
It is, and I think this was clearly expected based on all of his rhetoric, based on what his lawyers were saying. It's not surprising that he's making this kind of motion because, again, for him, it's always that he's the victim, even though he's the one, as we know from everything that he's saying, that's actually putting other people at danger and risk for their own safety. But it's always that people are continually attacking him. And so, again, I don't think this is going to have much to it. There is ample evidence in the D.C. indictment that's speaking indictment, ample evidence of there being probable cause that they had a worthy case to bring. And so this will be summarily dismissed.
Josh, I mean, there are some things the judges here can control and some things they can't. I mean, the appellate court is one thing and the Supreme Court is another. And I guess I would imagine, I mean, we are sitting here at Thanksgiving, effectively. As you point out, the Chutkan case is supposed to go to trial March 4th. And then there is Judge Cannon down in Florida who seems to have not said forthrightly, I'd like to delay the case. But in your writing this week, you point out that Cannon is surely aware of the suspicion about her in some quarters. That has led some lawyers to conclude she may already know the trial is unlikely to start in May, but sees no reason at the moment to ignite the firestorm she would face if she puts it off. There is, at this point, no real reason to believe this trial is going to happen when it is supposed to. Is that fair to say, Josh?
That's what all the legal experts I talked to said, including the ones that have handled cases involving classified information, criminal prosecutions. They think that what Judge Cannon is up to here, the lawyers sometimes call taking a position sub silentio in Latin, meaning that, you know, you don't come right out and say it, but it's effectively what you're doing. If you slide all the deadlines by, in some cases, as long as 3 months, even though you don't say we're putting off the trial date, you're putting it off. And part of the issue here, Alex, is it's not as simple as sort of an ordinary case. Maybe it'd be delayed a week or two. You look at what a delay of more than a week or so in that trial date would mean. It would mean that the trial could collide, for example, with the Republican National Convention, or it could slip into August or September, which really is the heart of the general election campaign if we assume that former President Trump is going to be the Republican nominee. So a lot of people think if that trial doesn't get underway by the end of May or the beginning of June at the absolute latest, it's realistically only going to happen after the election. And of course, that means it might not happen at all.
Right. Well, adding more stakes, as if we needed them, to the presidential election, November 2024. Josh Gerstein, Christy Greenberg, thank you guys both for your time tonight. I appreciate it.